God did say, this is Eve speaking, sorry, you must not eat from the tree or you will die. You will not surely die, the serpent said to the woman. God knows, by the way, that's another lie, you will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. You will be like God. That's something that Satan had in his heart already. And this is another lie. You'll be like God. No one's like God. This is an engine from a vehicle. And engines are perfectly designed to go for 100 or 200,000 miles. If you tweak them out a little bit and you get the right car, you can make them go a lot longer than that. But when something goes wrong, some little thing, it runs out of oil, or a strap gets loose, I should say a belt gets loose, things can start to go wrong pretty soon. So let's look in the engine. There's a gear up here, kind of on the upper left-hand corner. It's kind of a big gear. If we took out one of the teeth of that gear, how long would the engine run before it failed? I have no idea. But I do know that it wouldn't last as long as an engine that had everything intact, that was exactly how it had been designed. And the earth is kind of this way. God created every animal, every plant, the environment, the distance from the sun, who lives there, all to work in concert like a perfectly designed engine. And when something goes wrong, it sets off a little chain reaction of chaos that eventually starts breaking things down. And what we're experiencing right now in this world is a huge difference from what they were experiencing in the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, everything works smoothly. Mosquitoes didn't bite your skin. I don't know if you know this, but it's only the female mosquito that eats people, humans. The male mosquito, when he eats, there's a particular plant that he goes to. Maybe the plant that the mosquito, who is the female, goes to is now extinct, and so she has to rely on blood. But everything worked perfectly so that everything was beautiful and did not die. Look at us now. Things are dying. The reason that this slide has a dead leaf on it is because that's one of the first things that Adam and Eve must have seen when they were walking around in the garden after they had sinned. Imagine Eve strolling along. When's a little bit colder today? What's cold anyway? Goosebumps? I guess you wouldn't know what goosebumps were because nobody had plucked a goose yet, but what is this going on? Little pebbles under my skin? Ugh. And then all of a sudden she sees a dead leaf. And she realizes this is the beginning of the fruit of my mistake, the fruit of my sin. And she probably wept more than you or I would mourn for somebody who were close to dying, because she knows this world is going to be so much different. This world's going to have to live through death and all. And so this whole weight of the situation must have occurred to her. But remember, this earth and its history will serve to prove forever that anything not included in the perfect design of God is not just unpleasant, but it's fundamentally evil. It causes separation from the designer, and that separation causes death. Period. Each sin that we commit, if it had been the first, would cause the same chain reaction again of the earth decaying. We've invented numerous ways to act out against his plan, which we know as his will. His original design is his will, and anything we do outside of that is against his will or outside of the plan. Each, if it were the first, would lead down the same path. I think I already said that. Same path of destruction, should we not heed God's command to return to his will. That's called repenting. These steps outside of his will are simply called sins. So if you've ever wondered, what exactly is a sin? It's anything outside of the way that God designed things to be. Each sin results in death, bar none, because we're stepping back from God, and we really need his holy embrace to stay alive. Asking for forgiveness or desiring to return to God's design frees us from the consequence of death. This is the gospel, guys. This is the reason that Jesus died, because you need to die when you step back from God, but instead your death is replaced by somebody else's death. And the only one who can replace it is somebody who is valuable enough to be able to die and have his one death equal the value of every human that ever existed. And that's God. An angel couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for you. But God could do it for all of us, and he did. Amazing. Jesus is amazing. There was a little girl. She wanted nothing more than a canoe for her birthday because she lived near a swamp, and she always wanted to go out and explore the swamp with her daddy. And so he got her a canoe. And he said, never, if you're in your canoe by yourself, leave where we can see you from our backyard. They'd mounded up the backyard so it wasn't all sopping wet. And he wanted her to stay real close because the swamp's kind of dangerous. One day he was late coming home from work, and she and her dad were supposed to have a picnic in the swamp. And she couldn't wait. She couldn't wait. You know how you are when you're a kid and you want to go on an adventure. So she got in her canoe with her little paddle, and she started off. And before she knew it, she had an accident. She was in the mud up to her waist. Her canoe was capsized and sinking. The food was ruined. And so she began to wade back to her house. She didn't feel it, but it was late summer, and so there were lots of very large leeches in the water. And when a leech gets full, it unlatches and it floats away and lays eggs. And she was being hit over and over again with these nasty leeches. And she began to feel weak, not just from the mud, but because she didn't know it, but she was losing a lot of blood. She could see her house. She was still maybe 100 yards away. She was struggling. She began to have a hard time seeing. She kept tripping. Now she's covered in mud. She made it to the edge of her yard, and she just couldn't move anymore. Finally, her dad got home, came out in the backyard, and realized the whole thing. He could have lost his daughter because of these leeches and because of the struggle that she went through trying to do it without him. Guys, the lies of the fallen cherub, Lucifer, have followed us like engorged leeches hanging from our vision of who God is. The reason in talking with different atheists that they most don't want God to exist is because they think that he's the kind of guy that burns people forever, letting them writhe in agony. I and the church that you're sitting in, I know this is a cafeteria, but there's a church that meets here tomorrow. I and this church and many other churches around the world do not believe that people burn forever in hell. That is not true justice. You do not. I'm going to be repeating some of the stuff that I have in a different lecture, I just realized. But you do not see your child steal a lollipop and then spank them 1 billion times. Does that make sense? So for a lifetime of sin, you don't burn somebody forever in hell. That's not who God is. And that's one of the lies that Lucifer has put on people that distorts our view of who he is and makes us hope that he doesn't exist. There's many lies. There's 3 actually. In the Garden of Eden, Lucifer lied to Eve to get her to eat this fruit. He came in contest against Adam and Eve for their leadership position of earth, being the first humans. And the contest was, if I can get you to eat this fruit, then I get the ticket, the golden ticket. And so he set up his best plans, and he said, did God really say that you're not supposed to eat of this fruit? And Eve said, well, yes, otherwise we'll die. And Satan said, really? When he said, did God really say, he put doubt in Eve's mind. What if God wasn't totally telling the truth? And he slipped in a little secret message there about the character of God, that he wasn't who he said he was. And then he said, you will not surely die. I'm eating the fruit, and I'm not dead. And Eve received a second secret message. That is that